So David, you got your coaching panel in place. How are you feeling about the mix-up of characters and expertise?
Yeah, really excited. I think the blend's really, really strong. Scott, did a fantastic job. Experienced campaigner now. David T, having coached his own side, beat at 2 or 3 clubs. So Matty Clark's been around a while, and now you bring some freshness through James into that AFL group. James has been working really hard, particularly this year, on that mentoring, coach behind the scenes with some individuals. So it's been almost like a 12-month apprenticeship. We've seen what he's been able to do and deliver and put in place, and he's been heavily involved in leadership programs with a number of businesses, both here and in Melbourne, through his own business. So, no, I think the blend's really good, and to bring someone like Paul Thomas on board and give someone from the SANFL an opportunity, I think it's a great investment.
What was it about James that you thought he was ready to step right into being a line coach rather than like a development coach?
I think the guys that can make that transition really clearly have a philosophy, they have an understanding, and they have a direction that they want to take a group. And James probably displayed that to Phil and myself 12 months ago when we had an initial talk with him. And that hasn't changed. What we've now seen is him being able to execute some of those components of what his beliefs are in that direction. Particularly, I think, if you have a look at some of the fundamentals of what's required from a coach, the communication aspect it's paramount. You build the trust, you build the relationship, and James has been able to do that behind the scenes with a number of our guys, particularly our tools. I think that's the other element for us, is that what he can bring is some key position development, some of that real craft of forward and back, and so I think the package he brings is really good.
When you're promoting from within, was that a tough call when you've got some other guys who have been around the mix coaching, to not promote them but to take a guy straight?
No, I don't think so. I think the more that you're in the caper, for me, I think the less of a hurry you should be in. There's some real grounding and some craft and development of some coaching skill sets, that need to go with that. And we're really comfortable with where our other guys from, Tate Kaiser and Ryan O'Keefe, what they've done this year has been, fantastic. They've had to step into the breach at times when we needed, to move Heath up to the AFL. Ryan's been on and done his level 3 this year, so Tate's been studying the background. So we're extremely pleased where that group's developing in its own progression.
Do his philosophies, James, I'm talking about, does his philosophy sort of differ, given that he played the vast majority of his career as a forward? Do they differ from someone like a Darren Milburn, who was a defender throughout his whole career, as a defensive coach?
Don't think so, Harry. I mean they played together. So from that side of things, I think that'll be everyone's going to have their own piece of a philosophy as to what they want to build and deliver. But we're now going to fall under what Pikey wants, from that direction. So the team defence aspect is going to be embedded as a holistic, piece of that. And James will certainly have input into that. I think the times, we actually had him, I know in his last year at Geelong, he went and trained all pre-season down defence. The times that we swung him back, I know in our area, that proactive positioning component of where we placed him as that loose behind the ball, it was pretty important in a number of those games. Sometimes he did it off his own bat, but in essence, it's that ability to now teach the defence how to play more like a forward in anticipation of where the ball's going to come in, and how you actually, gather those intercept marks and create offence as a result of strong defence.
When James came along, there was sort of a bit of talk that you were sort of going to blood him to be a coach afterwards. Was that always the plan? Because I know he sort of wanted to talk about being a player, but did you have this in mind initially? Yeah,
we did. We wanted to, when you bring good people into your organisation, you want to maintain them in that for as long as you can, because they add to your environment and they help you grow. There was always that discussion of whether it was the leadership component, whether that was the strength and conditioning. You had some interest in some physio area, and the coaching. So I think what he created was a number of options for himself to explore when he got to the end of his career. And luckily for us, he decided to come initially and play. But it was always the plan that we saw him long term staying in the business in an element or an area of the footy sector. And now he's been able to move into the coaching ranks.
And sorry, I was just going to quickly on Jacob. do you see his appointment as an assistant coach, is that more of a long-term thing, or is it a season-by-season sort of a prospect?
No, I think it's long-term. I think that's where he'd like to be. We just had to work through a number of different areas outside of footy that he's got some interest in to make sure that you're able to devote the amount of time that's needed, into that area. James is a quality person that when he commits and devotes his time to executing something, he wants to do it, the best of his ability. So that's probably why it just took us a little time just to help manoeuvre things around. But we'd always had him in that scope of being here for that longer term period, and it was just a matter of balancing out everything else off field.
The draft's not far away. Have you
No.
pinpointed what exactly you want, or is it just the best player available scenario?
Yeah, generally, it's you draft your talent, so you tend to go down that path. The only change that you can tend to have discussion around, I'm saying that we have, but when you've got two picks close together, you can tend to look at it more from a strategic piece of, it might be best talent first, and then you might fill a need because it's quite close. It's a discussional piece that we have. 9 and 13 are pretty close together, so not quite as close as 4 and 5, but they're in the same field, so you can have that as a general field. You draft your need, you trade for your needs, and you draft your talent is generally the rule of which we've worked to. But certainly we'll be challenging the recruiting guys to make sure that they've considered all options. You probably try to balance up your list. I think what we've tried to do is to balance up our list with what we've done through the trade period, and then come the draft perspective, you look at the best talent that's available.
Has Don brought any ideas or a wish list that sort of has tweaked your draft thinking at all?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just the challenge, to make sure that all your processes are in place. You've done all your information. You've got all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and from that side of things. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll have a couple of, most clubs will have a couple of lengthy days with presenting where their picks are landing, who's likely to be in that space, and how it's likely to unfold. But it's still pretty tricky.
Is that a big part of the sort of the welcome process, to sit him down, show him this is what we're planning, this is why?
Yeah, it's always good to have other intel from another club coming in. This is our system, these are our mechanisms, these are our IT measures, and what we scale our list off, and how we sort of are working it to that point. It's always great to have another set of eyes come in from another organisation, similar to what we did when we got Reedy on board. We're able to bring that in from a management perspective. So with Pikey coming in from West Coast, it certainly adds that extra dimension.
So your best picks in a long time. Just how important is it to get this draft right when you're looking at your medium-term future, I guess?
I don't see this being any more important than any other year, because you've got to get those years right too. It's the fact that we've landed in 9 and 13 is terrific. I wouldn't say that we do any more work to make sure that we get them right, because if that's the case, you may not have the right people in place. We've got great confidence in what Hamish has done with the draft over the last several years now that he's been in charge, and his crew underneath him. I think those results have spoken really strongly for their ability to pick. I think it comes back to the fundamentals of how and what you're going to bring into the footy club. There's a core set of fundamentals that I think you need to look at of players, and why you're bringing them in under that scenario. At the end of the day, we need them performing in finals, and that's a lot of the rigour and discussion that you have in regards to where that talent fits is around the ability to execute your game plan in finals. I mean, that's what you're drafting him for. So, I don't think there's any more pressure on us this year than any other year.
Paul Thomas' appointment
Yep.
caused a bit of backlash. How did you receive those comments from Roy Laird?
Oh, yeah, look, I mean, he's been a great player for Centrals. We're rapt to have him on board, and ultimately we respect Centrals and their ability and what they've done in the SANFL wholeheartedly. But Paul in the end made a coaching decision, and we're just rapt to have him on board.
You're comfortable with the way this footy club went about it?
Yeah, yep.